So thank you, everybody, for coming and closing out your week with us today. We are from Fragomen, and our topic today is our customer story on secure real-time data in our customer portal, and we're using the big buzzword, embedded analytics. So I got a lot of questions this week, like what does a law firm do with Tableau? So I'm sure you're all dying to know what an immigration law firm is doing that is innovative. So this is what we're going to get into today. We're going to learn a little bit about us individually and Fragomen. We're going to talk about our use case and what we've learned along the way. And what I want you to take away from this session the most is I hope that you learn and use this as an example to bring back something to your organization that's innovative to solve an issue that's coming up in your organization, and not wait for a roadmap or a Tableau feature to come out. And I'm also going to give you a demo. So when I say demo, I'm not going to connect live because of security, and the tech's been a little bit crazy this week. So what I prepared was screenshots, and it will walk you through, so you'll be able to see our dashboards and what we've done in Tableau. And then we're going to wrap up with what's next for us, what are our next steps, and what we're going to work on. So just a little bit about ourselves. My name is Jill Wooster, and I've been at Fragomen for 2 years now, and I am a senior BI developer. Prior to Fragomen, I was at Carnegie Mellon University, Tepper School of Business, and I was hired back in 2012 to learn this brand new thing called Tableau and roll it out in the school. So like everybody else, I was completely dove in and I fell in love with this. We started, because I was at Carnegie Mellon University, we started the Pittsburgh Tug. So I was the creator of the Pittsburgh Tug there. And I watched it grow from 8 people at our original meeting, and now it's been handed off to somebody else, but we're in the hundreds. And I just wanted to put a picture of my dog up there because he's wearing, and you might recognize it from last year, but he's wearing the New Orleans bandana from conference last year.
Hi, Kevin McConnell, software engineer. I've been with Fragomen going on 2 years this coming February. Prior to Fragomen, I spent over a decade doing data warehousing and reporting for healthcare, both clinical and insurance. I've been using Tableau now since about 2015.
So what you need to know about Fragomen is we are the leader in global immigration law. We are responsible for 20% of all H-1B processing, and we are the only immigration law firm in Law 100. We have multiple awards for diversity, specifically gender recognition between the two genders. And just as early as last week, I think it was, Fragomen was named Immigration Law Firm of the Year by US News for 2020. 67 of the Fortune 100 companies are our clients, and half of the Fortune 500 companies are our clients. So just to put that in perspective of how large we are. And what I want to do now is, before we move on, is I just want to baseline what immigration is, just to make sure that we're all talking the same language. So immigration is moving personnel from one country to another country to be able to work in that country legally. And for the sake of this presentation, I'm going to be calling the personnel a foreign national. And the country that they are going to work in is called a receiving country. So when we get in the demo, that will be important for you to know that. But then once a person moves into a different country, there are different levels of complexity. So there may be different documents, there may be different time frames that we have to deal with. And not only are we moving an individual to a country, there are times where we're moving somebody's spouse, their kids, their dog, like their whole life is moving into this country. So it can get very complex because it is an ever-moving landscape. Things change daily in immigration law, and we get emails every day saying that in this country this changed, and in this country this is now required. So it's constantly evolving. So what Fragomen does is we help our clients navigate this process efficiently and seamlessly for the client and the foreign national. Immigration is our focus. Fragomen has a massive commitment to technology over the last few years. We've invested millions in data visualization and data-driven insight, and we are excited to have the right people, the right knowledge to empower that innovation. 2 years ago, an innovation center was built in Pittsburgh from the ground up. It's a 40,000 square foot building, 3 floors, and I think we have close to 200 staff at that building at this time. Fragomen's presence is worldwide. You can see just in North America alone, we have over 2,000 employees. And you can see on the far, that's your left side of the slide, we are in close to 30 different countries, and we are providing services in over 170 countries. Sorry. So you can tell in all of these squares that we are using Tableau. So every single one of these, we are using Tableau to guide analytics, and we are looking to build Tableau to use standard reporting, and also we use them for our client alerts and things like that. So we are adding value by using Tableau. Now we're going to get into our specific use case. So our team was brought on to create a better delivery method for end user analytics, which includes both external clients and internal employees throughout the organization. And our first ask was to create a global statistics dashboard. And what this dashboard would do would provide high-level information, geographic information on the foreign national, and then this information is based on user data security. Life before Tableau was so old school when I joined 2 years ago. We were using legacy applications like SAP and Webby reports, and Excel was everywhere. So we were presenting to clients 3D pie charts and all of the viz no-nos that you can imagine. And we had over 15,000 custom reports for each client. And the workflow was that our internal employees would generate a report and then present that to the client. You can imagine the resources that this sucked up and the redundancy. So we wanted to create a self-service standard reporting set. And what this set would do would increase user engagement and awareness of our data. And the biggest thing is to reduce the redundancy. We're an immigration law firm. We do one thing. We don't need 15,000 custom reports. And since I've joined 2 years ago, we've cut that in half. Now Kevin is going to get into the guts, the technical.
So our current setup now is we are a 2-server model. We have an external server that our client portal connects to, and then we have an internal server that is used for all of the internal employees, all living in different realms of our network. We were originally, when I started, we were on the 10.5.3 with a single node. We are currently in the process of upgrading both of our environments to 2019. At the time we were doing .1.3, making both environments HA environment with 3 nodes. We've already completed this on our external node and are in the final processes, or on our internal node and in the final stages of turning over our external one now. Our data sources are all replicated Microsoft SQL Server databases. There's about 10 different disparate databases that we have replicated to our reporting database that we are able to then use. For Jill's and my main purpose, we focus on the case and person data, which is in the portal application or our Connect application, and then the financial data from our financial database. The security for our application was able to leverage the security already existing within our portal application that uses a customized view for every user that contains the list of cases that they are able to access. So not a really good scalable option, but with tens of thousands of users, that means there's tens of thousands of custom views all containing that information that we have to figure out a way to work through. Continuing on the security, as Jill said, we're the leading immigration law firm, so you can imagine the type of data that we have to store. Not only are we talking your standard PII of name, date of birth, every address you've ever lived at, mother's maiden name. For some of our visas and some of our cases, we have to also house medical information, so a person's blood type, whether or not they're HIV positive. These are all things that some countries require, so our database is a treasure trove of information that would be gotten into the wrong hands, could be very bad. So at Fragomen, security had to be our #1 priority. So with that, once I joined, I was quickly approached by our security team with some additional requirements after the initial development had already done. They kind of reviewed what was going on already with the application and didn't like what they were seeing, so they came to me with some further ones. The first being that we had to do our data in real time with row-level security. So we realized we were going to have some issues with that. We did require a encrypted data stream. That was fine. We were able to leverage our current existing network applications to already do that, so there were no issues there. But the biggest hurdle we encountered was encryption at rest, which all of you know in extracts and 10.5 was not an option. It has become available in 2019.3. I haven't gotten a chance to review the documentation myself or thoroughly with our security team to see if it even meets Fragomen's security requirements to move forward, to see if it's something that we can leverage moving forward. But so, as you can imagine, we went through some trial and errors to finally get to our final solution. I'll take you through those right now. Prior to myself joining, I said there was already some initial development that Jill and part of our team had already started working on. And what they were doing was creating customized views that would contain the data they needed for each of our client organizations, and then generate an extract off of that that would be linked to a singular workbook that they would then publish, and we would give that link to our app dev team to embed in the portal. And like we said, with tens of thousands of clients, if you had to make one change to a single report, just the undertaking of going through that was, we couldn't do it. We had to come up with a better option. So it wasn't scalable. Also, we learned in this process that user A and user Z at organization could have different security access. So a singularized view extract didn't meet our needs anyways, because I could have access to 10 cases, Jill could have access to 5. Can't do that all in one way, especially with it being real time. So after the additional security requirements, we flat out realized we weren't able to use extracts. So we had to come up with a new solution. And what I first tried to do was, with our team, we tried to flatten our security views. We realized that the security views was going to be the issue. So we did an SSIS process to scan the security views every hour, X hours, days, and write them to a table. Well, with over 3 million cases, if a user had access to too many, the process blew up because it wouldn't fit onto one column. So we then tried flipping it and doing it where it would be the case IDs with all the users that had access to it. I didn't like it. Left us doing security with a where in or where like, which I wasn't going to do, and I know my security team would have been like, you can't do this. We need to come up with a better solution. So we realized that we were then going to have to access each person's individualized view at runtime. To do this, we were first trying to leverage Tableau's initial SQL to do all the work on Tableau, passing in a person ID, but because we were leveraging a view that we had to, that the person ID was contained in the name, we needed to rely on dynamic SQL, which initial SQL didn't do. So we then moved it over to a database object that would accept the same parameter. Once we got to this point, we had a working model using even the initial SQL to pass the parameter to our stored procedure, but we started running into some performance issues, and then after engaging Tableau, we found out that 10.5.3, there was a memory leak issue with initial SQL and would require that we would have to upgrade to 10.5.7. Our organization was already in the process of road mapping their upgrade, so when that occurred, I just started collaborating with our app dev team to figure out how to best integrate this into our portal that would work to meet all of our needs, and that's how we did come to our final solution, that we didn't even have to leverage the initial SQL anymore. So we did still rely on the stored procedure that was in the database that would pass a single parameter. On the actual login to our portal, our apps dev team didn't want to just pass an 8-character string that could be listened to or changed if someone figured out a way into our network. Since it's through the API, it's open, it's readable, you could actually see it. It was decided that when you logged in, a 256-bit encrypted token would be generated, and from that token, they would write to our database with the person's information and the time frame that you were able to actually see the data with a secondary token that told you you were still using the same data source. So they didn't try to use that. If they figured out the token, we didn't want them to actually then drive to another data set and steal that information instead of still being stuck on the one that they were on. So with those additional security checks in place, our security was a lot happier with us. So with the API, what we figured out through this whole process was we were able to use the on-first interaction to actually execute the stored procedure, removing the need to actually call through the initial SQL. So what it does is when the API calls on the initial SQL, it passes that token to Tableau, firing the stored procedure to generate the final data set. So what we were able to learn from this was that just with early on, we were able to figure out that the REST API was very robust and could do what we needed it to do for this custom solution. So after we had our final working solution, it was not performing to ours or our client's standards. So we moved into some process improvements quickly. The first thing I learned was let's change the stored procedure. Instead of trying to do the entire thing as one giant dynamic SQL statement, we moved into just doing a single line of it to write the case IDs to an index temp table that could be leveraged and then flushed out of memory when it was no longer needed. We also tested, depending on the data set and the amount of data that was having to be generated for the workbooks, temporary tables, common table expressions, or CTEs, some worked better in some cases, some worked better in others. It was almost a trial and error, just depending on if it was better to store it in memory or virtually. Also, we learned, and I'm sure some also have gone through this, is we only pulled the fields that were absolutely necessary for Jill to do what she needed to do to create the final visualization, just limiting processing as much as possible. So before we started going into these, we were running in the minute range. After doing this, we got it down to about 15 seconds to the final visualization. The API, this is where we gained about 10 seconds. What we realized was the API, by default, was initializing the workbook when it called it, meaning that it had to bring back just the blank screen before it would actually start processing anything. By actually making initialization false, it didn't have to do that anymore, and it would just immediately start processing the data and render when it was done. It didn't have to bring a blank workbook to then bring the final. We also limited tabs and displaying the tabs unless absolutely necessary, and used actions, custom actions, to navigate through the workbooks to make it a little bit more seamless and tell the story that we needed to tell. Like I said, we limited the actions, we only focused on certain things, and we also did our dates as parameters to make it so we were able to filter a little bit better. Jill's now going to give you what our customers experience through the demonstration.
So upon first login, this is what our portal looks like. The landing page is our global statistics dashboard, and this provides the high-level overview of our case counts and people counts and information. Down here, you can see the top 10 receiving countries by person count, and down here is a map, and you can see the counts within each receiving country. We have some date filters up here so the client can look year to date or month to date. And then what happens when you click on the United States, it goes to this dashboard where it shows specifically counts within that receiving country. We have the birth countries, so I think it said there was 200 or so foreign nationals going to the United States. You can see all these little dots are where the foreign national was born. This is our business area, so this is if certain clients have different divisions, it'll show counts there. And I just want to highlight on the panel on the side, so it's nice because it has the user login name and it has their company logo. And this is where you would select our analytics portal. Here's our offerings. And I'm going to show you what our I-797 expiration analysis looks like. And what this is an I-797 is a document type for permanent residents for people that are going through the perm process within the US. And pretty much what this does is it reviews and mitigates risk. So if you click on December, it will filter the case status counts to show what is expiring within that month. And then you have the detail. We have the guts of it where they can look at this information, they can go back to our client application, and they can make whatever changes or do whatever updates they need to do. So this works very similar as our I-797 document expiration, but this shows all documents like passports and different visa types. You can look at it broken down by these metrics. And again, if you select a specific month, the entire dashboard filters to show what's in the pipeline for that month with the detail. So this dashboard is our immigration population dashboard. And we're going to actually revamp this in the next couple of months because this was kind of a first stab where it shows parts of the immigration population, but it's really not hitting exactly the way that we want to do because of the way that we use dates in our system. But what this is going to do is that, there we go. You can see the different metrics for the foreign national, where the receiving country, their case type, their transfer type, their job title, and specifically, it's important to look at the RFE in immigration. So that's, it's an error that it's request for evidence that the government asks for. So it's really important to track why they're asking for more evidence because it slows down the process. So we really want to keep track of why they need to get more information. And what happens is if, say, you select Australia, then the entire dashboard filters to look at your population that's going to Australia. We have some date filters where I think you can look by case status and case type specifically and filter the dashboard. Or if you just want to look at all the software companies, if you're trying to move a group of software engineers to another country, you can see where they're at. This next dashboard that I want to show you briefly is one that I really, really like because you can see the maturing of the design within the dashboard. So instead of kind of throwing things out there and see what works, we're thinking more about an executive style dashboard. We're thinking about design. We're taking best practices. We have, a specific color palette that we use now because marketing revamped our logo. So we're really thinking about how it looks visually and how people are going to react to it. So you can filter on different things here, procedure type. You can see the counts by month. You can see the sponsoring entity, which is a child entity, and the case type. And again, everything's drillable. You can click in and you can see and make some analysis based on what you select. And here's our bread and butter. Our clients, our case teams, they want to see the details. So they want to know, what's going on. If you click on our spend tab, you can see the spend of our different legal fees and government fees and the breakdown of that across the banner across the top. You can filter by various things that's important. And it's broken down by current year. And if you select a specific procedure type, again, everything filters. You can filter on other things. Or if you want to look at a specific month of the spend breakdown, you can select it, and then it'll break down the fees and the expenses and the tax and everything and the total based on the month that you selected. So this dashboard here, it's kind of our baby. So this is not in our client portal, but this is a specific use case where we had some client teams come to us, and this was a brainchild of my colleague. She's working very close with our case teams, and they didn't have a good way to track SLAs. So SLA is a service level agreement. I'm sure it crosses across various industries that, what it is. But for different clients, we have different agreements. And across this banner here, you can see each one of these squares, they're benchmarks. So this is the average case processing time for whatever is selected. So for this company, it takes 23 days to process a case. 73, sorry, my eyes. 73 days average to process a case. And you can see that the gray ones are Fragomen. They're Fragomen steps. The orange ones are clients, so that's whenever documents or things are in the client's hands. And you can see that it's 39 days for the government to do their part in this process. What's really cool about this is that if you want to select a specific country, you can see what the case processing time is within that country. You can look at specific case types or procedure types, and you can filter if you have multiple organizations that you're looking at. You can filter here. And what happens when you select the Fragomen step of 12 days, it goes into a deeper analysis. And I mean, this visual is not mind-blowing or anything like that, but this is what they're used to seeing. And it tells a really, really good story, and it gives them a tool to do their work faster and more efficiently. So you can see which SLA dates are met, exceeded, and unknown within that specific organization. So we can even use this as a reporting tool. We can say, okay, client, here is how we're doing with our SLAs. You can PDF this and send it, you give them the detail, and they're really, really happy. Or if we have some data quality issues where there are some dates unknown, it shows here, and you can possibly select the unknown pie, and then it gives you all of the case IDs underneath that need to be cleaned up in our core system. There's various filters, and the one thing that I'm so proud of this dashboard is that this process would take our client teams weeks to figure out, because you're getting multiple reports, you're doing calculations on Excel files, you're doing it for different clients. But what this does is if client X has an SLA of 3 days, you just select the 3 at the top here, and we have a date calculation in Tableau that automatically calculates 3 days from the benchmark date. So they have all of the information that they need within seconds and not weeks. So you can understand how excited they are about this functionality. So we turned a very, very manual and tedious process into a workable solution using Tableau. So as you can see, Tableau has made a very huge impact on our firm in the last couple of years. We've increased credibility with our clients. Our clients are specifically asking for Tableau dashboards by name. We have a higher engagement with our user portal. We went live in February of 2019, and about 3% of our total clients are using the portal, but we've had 17,000 hits in the client portal within that time, so it's being used and it's making an impact. Not to mention internally, we're starting to standardize things. We have a better insight with our data and processes. We're building stronger tools for consulting. We're using Tableau to sit down and do strategic planning, and we're actually sharing the results with our clients within the RFP process, which is helping us retain our clients, and it's increasing attention with new clients.
So some of our next steps, we've created the access point for our external clients. Now we've been asked to do the same thing with our internal employees. So we're turning to SharePoint for that, to give them one place to go that will give them access to our legacy system and also to SSRS, where some of our reports will live, and Tableau all in one place. Once that's done, we're going to start migrating the remaining reports out of our legacy system, either primarily to Tableau or SSRS, depending on which one fits best.
And we're also looking to standardize our quarterly business review deliverables. So right now, it's again a very manual process. So our goal is to use Tableau to standardize these visualizations and reports and create a dashboard that has parameter selections at the front end of the dashboard. And then once those are selected, we'll use Tableau hit a button and use Tableau to do the heavy lifting and generate the visuals. So again, we're looking at turning a few-week process of getting these business review dashboards together, making it within seconds of being able to generate them and download them to PDF or send them to clients however we need to. Another area that we are looking at, and we spent a lot of time this week learning about, was the extensions API and write-back functionality. So we're going to invest a lot of time and heavily investigate this because we have a use case in our mind where we're going to use the write-back function to give our client teams a way to update required fields in our core system.
Like on the SLA.
Yes.
Just give them the ability to correct those unknowns directly in the system instead of having to go to that system itself.
Yeah, so I don't know how much you know about that process, but it's creating a form within Tableau that they can enter the dates in and then hit a button and it would fire back to the database. So actually, I think it's going to be an awesome topic for Data 20. So that's going to be our goal, is to kind of pull this together and then share with everyone how we did it, because think about the impact that could do for your organization, is not have to get out of Tableau to do those types of changes. And one thing that I spend a lot of time on is investigating new functionality and features with each release. So I highly recommend that with every release, you think about how it can affect your organization, because we want to foster new innovation all the time.
Webhooks. So the remaining are a couple just sample code slides, both of our API that we used just for the JavaScript to show how we went about this, just as a sample. If you guys want to be able to use something, it'll be in the slide deck when it goes out. And then there's also some snippets from the stored procedure, just showing how we kind of did some of our security and how we did some process improvement along with it.
Yep.
Huh? Yes, in this.
So thank you for showing up after Data Night Out, and no one left. So I am so happy that you guys all came out, and we really appreciate it. I wish you safe travels back. Please go in and we want to come back and talk next year. So I'm putting in my push to please give us good feedback that we are innovators and that our talk was helpful and interesting for you. So now we're going to open up with questions. Our contact information is in the bottom there, so feel free. The Tableau community is on Twitter. I'm very heavy on the Twitter side. Kevin, you can connect with him via email or LinkedIn.
And I guess I'm going to be creating a Twitter after
This week.
This week.
Converting him. So thank you.